All the roads are windy.
Welcome to the show, Elan. I'm so stoked to get to talk to you today. Thanks for coming to the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
It's totally. And for listeners, we are blessed by the presence of Elan's baby, a little older than a year, Ori. So you might hear little baby sounds. So, yeah. So tell us, where are your ancestors from? What's your lineage?
So my ancestors, I don't actually know much about my mother's side. I believe that they mostly come around from Virginia. But then most recently, like my mom was born in Kingston, New York. So I actually ended up kind of doing like a pilgrimage back in a way, because that's not too far from where I live now in Summit, New York. And then for my father's side, his mother is from okay. He
He's
has
like,
one of the ancestors like, nope, that's not where they are.
yeah, I know. He's like, if only they could understand me.
And then my grandmother on my dad's side, she is from South Carolina and from the Gullah Geechee Islands.
Oh, cool.
Specifically from Catalina Island is where she was from. And then my grandfather on my dad's side is from Guyana.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So that's my lineage. And then I know
Wow.
I've never done the ancestry myself, that like ancestry.com, or when you do the DNA, but my sister did. And so it did the usual as being a Black American. So it was mostly West African, a lot of Cameroonian. That was like the biggest. And then some Benin, Togo, Ghana, and then of course then European, and then like smidges of smidges of Native American, and of what was it again? Or Asian, but it was a specific part
Oh, wow.
of Asia, but it was like Indian because of the
Mm-hmm.
Guyanese side, I believe. But yeah,
Wow.
so that's my lineage.
It's so fascinating. It's always so wild to just hear just the mixing, melting pot of people.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Thank you. And where in the world are you now? And who are the original people of that land?
So I am in Summit, New York, in Schoharie County. And it's the territory, Mohican territory.
Mm-hmm.
So they were the original stewards of the land. So I try my best to always implement that in my thinking and in my rituals, and making sure that I'm just giving thanks to the Mohican people that stewarded for so long and kept everything beautiful
It's
for us.
so beautiful. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Cool. Well, thanks for those. So I'm super excited. When I came across you on the gram, of course, I was like, who is this artiste making these amazing soaps? Like, the soaps have like pictures in them. Like, what? This is nuts. So I was instantly just intrigued and drawn to what you were doing. And then I scrolled deeper, and it's like, there you are in your homestead, and like in your cute little cabin that's, your little I don't know, what do you call it? The studio or a cabin?
Oh yeah.
Space.
Our lean to.
It is so cool. It's like,
Thank you.
oh my gosh. And then like just all the like beauty. I was like, okay, this is someone I gotta talk to. So I'm really excited to hear about your journey and how you got here, because like you didn't start out that way.
Oh no. Definitely not.
Right? And just from what you've shared before we've got on here, from when we got you all signed up, is that, you came from a background in architecture, and you're from Brooklyn and from the city, and a city girl, and like now you're out homesteading in upstate New York with your fam and making these amazing artisan soaps with goat's milk and all these like beautiful like pictures and stuff. So tell us a little bit about like where you're from in that respect. Like how was your life, your kind of like before life?
So, my before life, ooh, I don't even know. There's like so many different stages that get you to
I
where
know, right? There's not a clear cut. I'm sorry for that.
it all started.
It's a dark and starry night.
So I was born and raised for quite a while in Brooklyn, New York, and Clinton Hills. And then as we got older, once I was around 10 or 11, my parents moved us all up to New Jersey or down to New Jersey. And so I spent a lot of my adolescence in New Jersey as well. I still have that Jersey girl in me. Love a good mall.
Right? Nothing wrong with that.
So I grew up there. And it was a little difficult growing up in the suburbs. And I also grew up in a very religious background, which wasn't that fun to grow up in as a kid. It was very rigid and strict. And I was always into crafts. I was always into drawing and reading and also kind of a homebody. So my father was actually the one who was like, you should probably get into architecture because I really love math, but I also really love drawing. And for myself, I was like, oh, I want to either be a writer or I want it to be a graphic designer. And my dad was like, nah, you're not going to do that. You're not going to make any money. It's probably going to be really tough. So you should go into architecture. And, I was like, oh, you know what? Okay, I'm down for that. I had just finished reading that book, The Fountainhead. I love you.
I haven't read it.
It's a crazy book. You don't read it. It's not good.
Okay.
But I was like, yes, architecture seems like the way. So from there, I went to school for architecture. I did an associate's for architecture. I did semester at NJIT as well. Then I dropped out of that. Then I went on to work at Con Edison, which is like the electrical company. And I did some junior designing for them and stuff. And then the recession happened. And so the program that I was in, that was like for the younger youth or whatever, they like cut that. So like we were all out of the jobs, like, which was really weird and crazy. I don't know if you had to deal with that too, with the recession for us millennials. And
I've always been a weird wanderer who just had like waitressing jobs and stuff anyway. So,
I will get to that point.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So once I got let off from Con Edison, then before waitressing, I got into the music scene, the DIY music scene.
Cool.
So I did a lot of I worked for shows for that where I did like door and I did bar and all that kind of stuff for DIY music, which is pretty fun for a while. But then that also had its pretty dark and down things about it.
I've checked that box too. So yeah. Keep going.
So then after that, I think then I did another stint of architecture. I tried doing that and I worked for a small firm and I just didn't enjoy it at all. It was something about, I think just even from school, there was just something about architecture or the way it was taught at least that just didn't work with me or gel with me well, or I always felt like an imposter when I was in it, or like I didn't know what I was supposed to know. And it was also very lonely. There wasn't a lot of Black people nor Black women, and it was mostly male dominated, which wasn't fun. So then it was waitressing, which was also horrible. Waitressing and hosting.
Oh.
And so with all this stuff happening, and I would get into other things. Like I did like cartooning. I did some courses in cartooning as well, and was like really into doing my own zines for a while. that was also, it's so labor intensive. It's like a very labor intensive
Right.
work.
And then you sell them for like a $2
Yeah,
each, right?
it's a similar feeling with soaps too, but like I'm an Aries. Yeah, like just keep on doing these labor intensive works that people are like, oh, that should be 50 cents. You're like, so yeah, with all this going on, I was in my 20s, didn't really know what was going to be happening in my life, didn't really have like a direct thing. And then so in the midst of that, then all of a sudden, the protests and Lives Matter came about. And it just really made me start to stop and think about my environment, about my role in the environment that I'm in, and things that have always like come up in my life that didn't feel right, and I didn't really have the language to express it or understand what was going on. And like I was always getting in trouble because I was always or like in the music scene and stuff, I was always calling people out for being racist, and people were like, what the heck are you talking about, Eli? Like, you're fucking racist.
That's what's up.
Yeah, so I didn't really have the language to understand why I knew that these things were wrong and what was wrong and happening with them. And then when the protests began and Black Lives Matter, and then also thankful to the internet, there was like more resources going on and more about how to speak about what's going on, why these things are and stuff. And so that was really helpful for me. And that got me into herbalism because I wanted to learn more about my ancestors and what my ancestors did in the past to help heal themselves, and how they got through how they maintain how they maintain their integrity, how they also rebelled against the current situations they were going through. So I wanted to learn from them on how they were able to be resilient and also fight back. And a lot of it was in herbalism. I feel like herbalism had a big play in their health and also how they understand in their movement of their environments and the movement of the society around them. And so it really spoke to me. Herbs spoke to me, and how to deal with so much stuff in my life when it came to being a revolutionary and figuring out how to move forward in my life. Also just like learning from the herbs and how they grow, how they resist stuff, how some work with each other, just all that stuff that really helped a lot for me. And that's what got me into herbalism. And then I'm sorry, I hope I'm not running.
This is great. Keep going. Yeah.
And so then in herbalism, it also brought me into wanting to grow herbs, and not just using them, but like truly having a relationship with them and knowing about them from seed to, I guess, seed to getting back to seed, that whole cycle, right? Yeah. There's like no end, just that learning that whole revolution of them.
It is though.
So inspired me for the move up here to Homestead as well. Before that, my partner and I, we would go to the Adirondacks, and right. That's how we felt whenever we went. And so he had some family friends who had a place up in the Adirondacks, and they had like a little cabin that they would let us stay in whenever we wanted to come up. And so we would go up there and just like, wow, this is the life. This is amazing. How can we do this too? So with that, we like started looking towards that move of getting out of the city, which was also insane too. So expensive. It's like, it was just really tough to live in the city by that time. Even though there's a lot of jobs, it's not really jobs that are that fun or at least it wasn't fulfilling for me. Like working, I didn't want to work at restaurants or cafes anymore, and just going through that, not having much agency, especially the more of learning about being a Black woman and how important our agency is and wanting to work towards that. A lot of that whole the service industry, it takes away so much of that agency, and it's kind of like okay, but you have to be okay about it because it's the service industry and the customer is always right and all that kind of stuff. So it just like makes marginalized people even more vulnerable, I believe. So I was done with that. I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then we made the move upstate. We basically just did it by like looking for the cheapest place we could find in New York.
And
so,
for land or a house, or was there
for
a specific
land
thing? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it started out as land because we were like, wait, in over our heads, like, yeah, we're gonna totally just build the house from the start, just buy a plot of land. But then we quickly realized that might be a little hard. It's a little harder. Also, it takes having money on hand too. So we eventually found a place in Summit that had like a little hunter shack. So it had it had at least like those bare bones that we needed so that we could like move in but work on it while we're there. So that was good. Our family helped us out in getting it and stuff, and it was really cheap though too. So just good. And then we just like worked on it. I worked on it a lot, especially my partner. He like redid the foundation. He did created plumbing and like it was a lot. We basically had to like build a house, but it was like we got to take it apart bit by bit while we rebuilt it. So it was kind of that kind of a thing.
Yeah, so, that's cool.
Yeah. So up here even though I didn't want to do food service anymore, I did end up working at a cafe for like when we first moved up here, and that sucks.
Right. Sometimes you just gotta transition, it's like sometimes you want to take the big leap, but you gotta take a little step.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it did its purpose. I was able to have some money to help work on the house while we did it, and then eventually I ended up working at a ginseng farm, which was awesome. Cool. Oh, yeah, it was really cool. So it was I feel like it's a bit of a rare experience to have as a farmer, because I didn't learn farming in the typical way of like produce farming. I learned farming with more of like being in the woods and like I guess in agroforestry in a sense. Cool. At least that's how I learned agroforestry, because I'm now learning that agroforestry people tend to more mean like the
trees as the product. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Is that right? I don't know.
I went to school for this and I should know, but but yeah, like the trees and the fruits. That's okay. Keep going.
Okay.
But and for people who don't know what ginseng is, maybe will you tell them like why that farming is different too?
Okay, yeah. So ginseng is like this very it's a beautiful herb. It's really amazing, but it is also very fickle. It's like it needs these like very extreme right conditions, and then even when you have those conditions, the herb itself is very fickle. It's an adaptogenic herb. That it's really revered in Asia, and like it's kind of known for being like the herb for older people, at least from what I've learned. Like if you're getting older and stuff is starting to give out, it helps to plug in those holes, I guess, in a sense. So in growing the herb, it likes to have the specific qualities of it likes to be in a slope. Mm-hmm. It likes to be north facing. It doesn't want too much sun. It has to have shade with a speckle of sun coming in.
Sounds like me.
Yes, are you are you I forgot the name of the herb.
Ginseng.
Thank you. Are you a little ginseng plant?
I don't know. I'm like, I need to have the right light, and it needs to be like this coming. Like, this is great. I'm like, this herb is like now becoming an archetype. It's very particular needs. I'm like, okay, yes. I can get down with this.
Yeah. It needs calcium as well, so it loves to be around sugar maple trees, especially like if you have like a sugar bush in your area, or if you make sap, if you make maple syrup. Thank you. So
right.
If you make maple syrup, you probably have the perfect conditions for ginseng. Cool. Yeah, it's really cool. So that was awesome. So because it people do farm it in like in kind of you call it traditional farming, in the row farming.
Monocrop.
Yeah, they do that, but it doesn't make as much. One, it's not revered as much. Like, another thing about ginseng is that like you can sell it for a lot of money. Like, it's really expensive and insane, but you can only do it if it has like the certain qualities that people want. Like they want it to be wild, and they want it to be old. For it to be old and wild was the to ginseng. So in the farm I worked at, we did simulated wild harvesting. So we tried to make it as close to wild as possible, where like the only thing that wasn't wild was that we were the ones propagating it.
Cool.
So yeah, it was really cool. It was like we were climbing mountains, chopping down trees. I like had to learn how to use a chainsaw.
Wow.
So yeah, and like we would do this method of leaf blowing the leaves to then propagate the seeds, and then leaf blow back and
put them all back on top of the ground.
It was insane. It was really crazy. So it was I feel like it was a unique farming experience for sure. And then also like to be in the woods the whole time while I was farming and stuff was like so interesting, and how dealing also with nature while we were in there, and having to deal with like thunderstorms all the time. It's like almost like a rainforest out here. Wow. So yeah, it's crazy. So like there's always like these rainstorms that would come through, and so that was it was fun. And then there was also mushrooms that there was a sector of mushrooming. I actually didn't work for them with the mushrooms, but I did get to do courses in mushrooms with them and stuff, which was cool. Yeah. And then I had Ori.
and then
I couldn't
work there
anymore.
But you didn't want to strap him to your back and chainsaw?
I mean, they were trying to get me to do that. They were like, hey, if you want to, you can still work. I was like, I don't think so. Not today. So with having Ori, I like had to figure out how can I still be financially independent and while having a baby and raising him myself and stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll do the soap.
Did that idea, did it just pop into your head, or was there an inspiration for it?
I have been making my own soap for about 2 years, but it was like, I was making it just for like my family. So it was like not that many, and it wasn't pretty at all. It was very ugly.
But you learned the basics.
Yeah, I learned exactly. I learned the basics. I got comfortable with it. And then like in making the soaps for my family, my sister was always like, Elan, you need to make soap. You should make soap. And I think none of us really knew them, like kind of like what it would turn into. Maybe my sister knew, and maybe that's why.
I feel like Spirit knew. Spirit was like, come on.
Yeah. Because I guess I never thought, like, I have always, like, I've been into being creative and artistry and stuff. And, like, I've always tried to find my ways to find my medium or find my outlet in being creative. It just never really quite worked for me. Whether it was, like, in architecture, drawing, music, cartooning, zines, all that kind of stuff. It just never it never like clicked, but like with soap it clicked.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So I was really happy about that.
What made you start making it for your family? Was there like skin sensitivities or just a curiosity?
Yeah, the first thing I think the first catalyst for it was we were like big Dove heads in my
Mm-hmm.
family, like using Dove. So
Mm-hmm.
like, my sister and I, we would just go crazy for the scent and all that kind of stuff. And then like Dove had that crazy racist
Oh my gosh,
ad.
right?
Yeah,
So racist.
they
Like
had that
how could
crazy.
that how? I don't even know like but I'm not surprised how because that's the freaking society we live in. So keep
Yeah,
going. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, so it was like that crazy ad. And especially during the time that it was in, I think it was like during Ferguson and when there was all the protests and stuff. And then they put out this ad that was it was just so obvious that like, I feel like for the ad, it was like they already had a very racist campaign in the beginning of like cleanness and whiteness and like,
Right.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the whiter, I feel like they have like this kind of like whiteness is godliness as opposed to, kind of thing. So
Right.
I feel like in a very lazy way of the times, they were like, oh, how can we just like copy and paste being racial equality into like our racist ads? And so they came up with that horrible monster.
Oh my gosh. Ugh.
And I'm not sure if because I'm sure they've had tons of racist ads, but I was the one that like started for me was like it was like a black woman where she like pulled off her skin to become a white woman and
Right,
like,
because keep going, keep going.
yeah. So it was that one. And of course people came back and they were like, oh well, there's like other races there too. And it's like all the races pulling off the skin to show that like the skin doesn't matter or whatever. And it's like, yes, of course, if you don't want to actually look into it and see how it's still racist. Where one, it was still colorism because all the other races in it, it was still like white aligned race, like I believe they said that they had like a Latina woman and there was an Asian woman, but like black people aren't the only people with melanin. Like so that was weird. So still in that sense, and also that they were still just piggybacking from racist ads that they had before, like, and they just put other races in it, I guess, because like they have ads around the world where they are even more blatant about it, where they're like washing the black away to become white. And
Yeah.
so there's all that craziness. So I was like, yes, let me stop putting my money into these companies and
Yep.
maybe just start making my own stuff.
That's right. It's amazing too if you or anyone listening to looks into like old advertising, it's
Yeah.
amazing just how racist they are really and just
Mm-hmm.
looking at the ads that our country has been built on. I mean, we're such an advertising forward company, not
Mm-hmm.
company, culture that like it's just everywhere and
Yeah.
just mind blowing. But that's amazing though. I love how this super racist ad helped give birth to this gorgeous work of art of like this beautiful calling that you had and that you just like came out of nowhere almost like that you wouldn't have
True.
chosen. It chose
Yeah.
you and you stepped up.
Yeah. It is it's hard, but it's also like, I don't know. I guess I don't really. It's a difficult thing because like you don't want your life to be catalyzed by like
Shitty
by these
stuff.
yeah, by shitty stuff. You don't want it to be catalyzed by it. But then oftentimes once you do that research and you dig in deeper and learn a little more, it can help you create the life you want, I guess, because now you kind of understand what's going on a little better. And
Mhm.
then it also explains maybe why other things didn't work so well for you before. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, truly though. Truly. It's so much there. I feel like we could like unpack that for hours,
Yeah,
days, weeks, years. Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So in that, um, gosh, I mean, just even wondering from in that experience, what did it show you about your own capabilities or your own, just like, what did it show you that maybe you didn't know before or didn't accept?
Yes. So for me, it's been so it has helped my confidence a lot because and from being young, being going through like a racist system and being a Black woman, or even from being a Black girl, where like oftentimes the whole story and the narr the narration that you know for yourself or that you're taught for yourself isn't very nice, or it isn't very inspiring, or I guess you don't really expect a lot to happen in your life, you know?
The
And
picture
then
that's
to
painted is
continue.
not one of like possibility and opportunity.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, and then just going through life, people not really expecting much from you. Even if your family, like my family has always been very supportive of me, and I feel like my family has always been cheerleaders for me, or like believe that I could do or achieve things. But even when you have family that is supportive, to constantly kind of have the rest of the world not be that way, it can make you doubt yourself or make you wonder if you are good. A lot of times in dealing with work, even sometimes in dealing with school, I was made to feel like I guess that I was like inept with things, like I didn't know how to do things, or people would kind of treat me like it was just not a good feeling. It always constantly felt like they would have to like tell me I can't explain it really, but like I don't know. It always felt like a spotlight was on me to not do things correctly, you know? Or
Right.
that I just didn't have like the education, or I didn't have the knowledge, or I wouldn't have the skill set, all those kind of things going into jobs. So it really, over the years, it really like chipped away at my confidence in like, maybe I'm not like as smart as I think.
Right. Gets you questions your very, very core of like,
Yeah.
well, maybe I should just settle for less in life and I can't really have or do or be what I want.
Yeah.
That's just like so degrading.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really degrading. It was a very degrading feeling. And also I think a lot of times for everyone, we want to feel like we're useful. We want to feel like we have a place, and that like the place that we have wants us to be there as well, you know? And so there wasn't a lot of that at all in workspaces. And I think a lot of that too is just that like in dealing with white people, a lot of times they are so unaware of racism. They're so unaware of like their own racist ways. And like I think a lot of times racism is seen as like it could only be in that one way of like being what's
Overt, like a Nazi or something.
yeah, I guess being a Nazi. I don't want to say like I feel sometimes some of the language around race is weird.
Tricky.
Yeah, it's tricky because I don't want to say overt because I feel like it's all very
It's
overt.
all overt.
Yeah, it's all overt, but I guess like yeah, it's not the very loud, boisterous Nazi
It's kind of like
bad white person kind
right,
of
like
thing.
it's a more like identity labeled of
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, that person of that identity is
Yeah.
racist.
Yeah. Very true. So and I feel like and because like society and the systems doesn't really have any resources for white people to identify their racism, to identify how to treat Black people like human beings. And so I think it's just like even when people are well-meaning, I think a lot of times even in their well-meaningness they still are very racist. And
Yeah.
I guess it's just difficult being a Black person, and you don't really know how to navigate through it. You hope that by working very hard, and you hope that by being present and doing your best will be enough, but it never really is, because there's so many of these other layers that aren't identified, and some people don't even realize it's going on. So yeah, so there's a lot of that. So in having my own business where I'm able to kind of work for myself and like see how hard I can work, and then also having a community that appreciates my work, it's been amazing. So, and very helpful.
Wow. And like, sounds like you were a seed planted in this like fertile soil. And you got to bloom finally instead of having to try to grow out of a crack in the sidewalk, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, oh wow, this is what it's like in the perfect dappled shade of the northern mountainside.
I guess I'm a ginseng too. We all are ginseng.
We're all just little ginsengs inside.
Little ginseng plant.
Right? We need the right conditions to thrive. And our society is not set up for that for Black people, and especially Black women. It's like expectations. It's just like the picture's already painted before you even stepped into the picture. Yeah. It's just like, So it's really beautiful to hear, you know, unfortunately for our lifetimes, this is the system that we've always known, and hopefully we can make some changes. You know, probably will be some generations before it will be like actually a just society. It's like, I don't know. I'm open to possibilities. I'm open to like overnight it just fucking changing. But
I think it's good to be realistic. And I think in being realistic, it also allows more of that room for change, and people understanding that they'll make mistakes. There will be mistakes, and you're not going to be perfect, or the society is not going to be perfect overnight. But at least if you're making those steps towards change, maybe.
Right. And what's so cool too is to just see that is to see people like you and who have been, you know, climbing the uphill battle, you know, trying to swim through the breaking waves your whole entire life. And then you get here and you're like, I am making this beautiful business born of my creativity, born of my inspiration. And it is something that I am my boss, and I get to be my leader, and I get to value myself and be valued by others. And getting to like create that, it's like we have to create that in a way because the system didn't create it for us. And so seeing you doing that and then sharing your story and other people getting to see it, like this gets to rewrite those narratives so that we get to tear down the pictures that were painted before you got there and paint new pictures where actually there is no color to a specific role. There is no class to a specific, I mean, I don't even know if classism will ever end. That's like a big one. Oh my gosh, but let's
I'm kind of like we can't be pessimistic, right?
Oh my gosh. Let's, you know, just gonna keep but like just saying, you know, I love seeing this new story of possibility, and just, you know, acknowledging that it's been, and you're probably going to keep facing things, you know, really a lot of challenges and a lot of things to face along the way. But it's just like, wow, let's just celebrate how fucking awesome it is that this is happening, that you're here. I'm like so grateful that you're making your art, because when I see it, I'm just like, wow, that is so cool. You know, it's like, let's celebrate the beauty that comes through. And I think one of the biggest things that people don't even realize about this narrative is that like the picture's been painted so poorly and the narrative has been written so in just such a degrading way that the white and Black people alike don't even realize what a rich, beautiful history Africa has, and this just like creativity, spirituality, knowledge, ancient arts, ancient science, and just all this wisdom. And like all people have these it's not just white people that are like creative and smart. It's all people. And being able to create more space where that's possible. Like, let's remember that. Let's bring that up and live it and be it now. So I don't know. I don't even know where it just like came from, but just like seeing, just want to honor you and your path and how you've, you know, gotten here, and that you're helping rewrite and reconnect and reweave these webs of like, hey, there's so much more out there than what we were told.
Yeah. And then also in line of what you're saying is like, also, I'm not the only one, you know, there's so many other Black women, Black folks who are doing so much good, amazing and creative work. And it's really beautiful. It's heartbreaking, I guess, for me that like a lot of times, I know for me, I just started this business like in March, and like I finally started getting momentum. To be honest, like before I started getting momentum, like so many things happened. I was like, maybe I'm not doing it right. Like, I don't know. I was like, it was very exhausting and tiring. And then like I kind of got like, I finally got like I got a lot of help because of the protests happening again and Black Lives Mattering again. And like, it's a very it's a weird experience, I think, to have as a Black person, where like the only time that your work is kind of shown or given voice is only after like something very traumatic happens. And like, it's really sad. And I think also the thing is that for me to have gained that momentum, I had to kind of put my trauma aside, and I couldn't really take that moment to like grieve, you know. I had to take that moment and like continue to like really work and strive. And I think like there's something to be said about a lot of Black people who are making a lot of beautiful creations, but they probably also they don't have the energy to do that work all that time, you know, that traumatic work to like not only have a business, but in order for you to be seen, you have to like go out there and talk to people and make friends with people and deal with white guilt while you're going through trauma. So there's just that's a lot to deal with as a Black person. So shout out to all those Black people being creative and doing your work. I see you.
That's amazing. Major shout out. And I think what you said there too about like only being seen because of trauma, like that's a narrative we got to rewrite too. And that's a narrative that we can all rewrite. It's in all of our hands to be able to make that effort to go out and find Black people in celebration, not just in the trauma, and uplift and support and
like
just
you were
acknowledge each other. Yeah. So, and you know, for you, are there any, I mean, I hear you, what I'm hearing you say is that like you're almost like poised at this perfect place with soap and COVID and the Black Lives Matter. And you're just like, ancestors, maybe, I don't know, like what, like perfect timing.
Right? You gotta thank the ancestors. Otherwise, it's just like I don't know how else to explain it.
You couldn't have planned it better, you know, like it's like, whoa. And so, but then I hear you saying in that it's like, wow, it's almost like if I don't catch this wave now, then I'll miss my chance. And it's like, that's that no time to grieve, because you got to run, you got to run with it. And so in that, like, what is the picture that you would like to see instead?
That one's a hard. Also, like I'm new. I only started in March, and so I'm still trying my best to learn how like social media works and how to create business through it and stuff, and all like talk about algorithms and so, exactly. And so I mean, it's really tough because I think even in things like algorithms, there's racism in that. There's a lot of things where like a lot of times Black people sometimes I think some Black people are afraid to even show that they are Black, because if I don't know how algorithms work.
Well, algorithms reflect our inherent biases.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they do. We inform them and then they feed it back to us.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are dealing with a lot of racism and people having racism that they're not ready to even understand yet, and so with all those biases, if they come into the coding of the computers and the programming that we make, I don't know. I really don't know how it will. What are things? I guess maybe the best thing to do is just say things that I've seen so far that are helpful or that are good. And I think out of this recent protesting and awareness of Black lives, like I've noticed like a lot of allies or accomplices, they made like a highlight of Black creatives. In that way, kind of like Black people are always being seen. Yeah, if we can't trust the algorithms to work for us, maybe if you are trying to include Black people, make sure that you have them seen in your own platform. What are more things that I would want to see? It's a hard question. Sometimes it's hard to imagine.
I know. It's like you gotta make it up.
Yeah. Some more things that I would want to see. That I would, because it's like easy to be like, I would love to just see more Black people, but how do we get that to happen?
Okay. Keep going. Then I'll say what I was going to say.
I was going to say, I realized that even in being a Black person and me trying my best to reach out to Black people on my own, it was really hard, to be honest. It was really
find
hard,
people.
and it wasn't until the Black Lives Matter and I actually saw more white people posting Black people. It made it way more easier for me to contact the Black type of but Black people I was looking for, people who had common interests and stuff. Because before, and just like doing a little hashtag, it was like it was kind of like it was a messy to try and find my own community, but it actually helped so much for white people to just like plop up some highlights, show Black people that are and I don't know why that is. Like it made it even so much easier for myself as someone who was like concertedly looking for Black people to form community with. It was really hard for me before. So like there's things that you can do as a white person that helps a lot. And it could be something really simple. So maybe starting from there.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I really resonate with that too, because we on the show for years have made it a concerted effort to like feature not just white people. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we're like, how the hell are we supposed to like, we will be scrolling the hashtags, we'll be following, we'll be like looking in who people follow, we'll be like looking down the who liked what, we'll be like following, and we're like, where are the Black herbalist witches? Like, why the fuck is it so hard to find them? So like, I hear it, and it shouldn't be that hard. It's so thank you for your suggestions.
You're welcome. Yeah, if you find Black people, make their stories known so other people know. It's not like you can't find us because we're not here. It's just like add it to the story, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, feel free at any time to send me someone you think would be cool to talk to.
I will.
Not to put labor on you, but like invitation, if you want.
Okay, yeah. I will definitely do that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And listeners too. We are so open. We're like, we just love finding new people in the community and just being like, oh my God, look at these rad fucking babes. Or they can be dudes, or they can be theys. It doesn't have to be any particular thing. So cool. And I was going to say about the algorithm, like Spirit knows how to fuck with the algorithm. And
really?
Oh yeah, I did one morning. I woke up and I was like asking the mushroom spirit. This is over a year ago now. I was like, mushroom spirit, any mushroom spirits that want to help. I didn't have a particular one in mind at the day. I was like, can you just help me like grow my business? And then I later that day, that was like just a random request of the spirits. Later that day, I saw this picture of a mushroom that someone had plucked, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I just wanted to repost it. It was back before we mostly reposted stuff back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I reposted it, and it went viral. Never had I ever had a post even close to this. It had like 11,000 likes, and it like got like, I don't even know how many views. And the reason why is because people were arguing in the comments over whether you should slice or pull a mushroom when they find it. And the mushroom spirit totally trolled Instagram. I was like, that mushroom spirit, it helped. It grew us by like 100 followers. It was
Wow.
I was just like, okay, spirit is everywhere, even in the algorithm. And it's if only we're willing to ask. And we do ask, we're like, help us connect with the people. And that's how we found you. And like the whole, like the Black Lives Matter and retagging helped find too. But we're also like, we're like, help bring us the people. Sometimes it comes in waves, but it's like, sometimes you're just like, whoa. So don't forget that spirit can troll and fuck with and manipulate the algorithm too.
Thank you. I love that.
Yeah.
It's so difficult, like sometimes, and I need to be better about this, but like sometimes I separate my whole spiritual and ritual from like my business, and apparently I need to stop.
Merge those things together.
Merge them, right?
They're already there. I mean, look, your ancestors are spirit. I don't know what. I'm just guessing ancestors, but they're like, let's inspire her to the soap. And let's get her ready. Let's get her set up to be ready at this time with these conversions of these things. Like, come on. Like, they're like, we're already here.
It was spirit. It was really funny because I was like, when I started, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it on the spring equinox. It was like last year. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to open my shop on the spring equinox. And
that's
awesome.
Be
so beautiful. And then the COVID.
But we need to wash our hands. Like, and we're all home and like shopping online more than ever. We're like, ooh, cool soap. Hey. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's spirit. I can't I don't know how else to explain that besides spirit. So I definitely need to implement spirit into like this business and figure out, and then I think you're right. It could be also very revolutionary too. I'm always trying to figure out, I don't want my business to just be like, I don't want to just go with the wave of like, trying to, whatever the wave is to getting us.
Right.
I do want to have like a foundation, having some rebelliousness, having some type of activism. And definitely now I need to also like implement spirit, implement ancestors in it as well.
Right? It's a
that's
powerful
like really
tool.
Would be the trifecta of getting shit done.
I think so. And I think that too, that like you talked earlier in our conversation about agency, and like the algorithm can really make us, I know for me, I can only speak for me, but I know it can make me feel like I don't have any agency. And like, I'm not trying to like play the algorithm, as I know I'm trying to reach the people that I'm meant to reach. And so I'm like, okay, what can I do that is going to reach the people? And there's like it's like a blend of logic and spirit and intuition. Like there is some like learning about what you can about the algorithm, but then also like what's inspired and what's going to actually just like, what are you doing because you think you have to do it versus what are you doing because it's like, wow. And I feel like Instagram, Facebook, social media, all these things can so easily be places where we feel like we have no agency. We hand over our power in a way. And it's like, well, take your power back. And what does it look like then when you engage with this platform, if you choose to engage with it at all?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear more about your ritual life and like your and even like how did you, I assume you're no longer connected to the religion you grew up in. Like what was that like to step from that into what you practice or embody now?
It was I would say there was like a big gap period of just like not being about spirituality at all. And even now I think I still struggle sometimes because like if like familiar concepts come into how I see spirituality now, it could kind of make me close off or shut off, and because it reminds me too much of like the past religion I was in or something. So it was tough getting out of it, I guess. It was kind of like a thing. It was one of those kind of religions where like you kind of feel like you have to cut off everyone you know and all your family and all that kind of stuff to get out of it. So that was tough. So it was kind of like I finally moved out of my parents' home and had my own apartment, and I was just like, it was finally like I could just kind of breathe in a way. And like after being a child that like I wasn't really able to have friends. Like I could have friends, but only if they were in the same religion, but there were no kids my age. So it was like, what can I do?
Deal.
Yeah. So that was really tough. And so there was like a large part of my adolescence feeling like I always call myself like the girl in the attic. I would call something like that. And my dad's always like, why do you always call yourself the girl in the attic? But I would literally just like, I would always be in my room, which is always in the attic, just like making stuff by myself, listening to music and all. It was a little bit of a lonely childhood. And so when I finally got out of the religion and I got out of living out of my parents' house, I was just like freedom, and I got really into music and going to shows all the time. So I hadn't like kind of like no interest in religion at all during this time. I just wanted to get away from. I think I just needed a break from religion because I had so many like bad things tied into like. I guess I had spirituality and religion tied together, you know. So there was no sense of me really wanting to do spirituality. Also, there was still like the feelings of the religion I grew up in, where like anything outside of it was considered demonic. And so like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So the idea of spirituality without that religion was also like kind of like, oh, that's kind of evil, or you might be getting into things that aren't good and all that stuff. That
maybe even dangerous.
Yeah.
Maybe even dangerous.
Yeah. It was dangerous. Dangerous, evil. You could mess up your whole life and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so with that, I was just like, okay, so I'm just gonna figure out music, and I wanted to like get to know people and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until like after the Ferguson and me wanting to be more interested in my ancestry and our history that I started learning more about our ancestral religions and about Yoruba, and then also about like hoodoo and root work and all those practices that Black people have used in the past to give them health, to understand the world around them, you know. So yeah, that was kind of how I came to it. To be honest, I am not a super spiritual person even. It's hard. It's hard when you come from like a super strict religious background. So even though I'm not a priestess or anything, I feel like I'm light years from like where I was from how I grew up. And to be honest, like most of my feelings towards spirituality is just like comes from a place of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't say like anything is for sure or exact. I've had experiences, and even with that, sometimes I don't like expressing them because I feel like sometimes I don't know how
you don't know.
Interpret them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know how to interpret
I don't
them.
know.
And I never want to come off as someone rigid or come off as someone where like to make people also like there was a lot of hierarchy also in that religion.
Yeah.
So I feel like sometimes even now in like even just like the non-religion spiritual realm, like a lot of times people use their experiences and their closeness to spirituality as a way to be a hierarchy or like wiser or whatever from other
I'm
people.
better than you because I have this spiritual connection.
Yeah. So I don't like that within the spirituality sense. So sometimes I find myself kind of distanced from talking about it, or
yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like it's like the same thing around taking away your agency.
Mhm.
And it's like, you need me in order to connect to God or spirit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's just the same system of the religion, but with a different face on it. And people don't even realize that because they're already so programmed in that, like looking to that external power instead of their own agency. So I feel like I get what you're saying, but I don't know. Right? It's like, and who really knows what's up? Nobody really knows what's up. Like, this whole life thing is a mystery. It is so weird. It is so weird.
But I guess I can at least talk about some experiences in a light way, like, and just I don't know, but this did happen.
Right.
So I guess some of the times that I feel like I could have had contact with ancestors is usually a lot through dream work and experiences of like talking to my grandma or talking to my grandfather. Like one of the most vivid ones, there's been like two very vivid ones for me where like, I guess it wasn't so much as a case where like, I know some people have experiences where like they directly talk to you and they like, I guess it's more hands-on, but I guess for me, it was kind of like more like it gave me like a shift in feeling after having it, where it wasn't so direct. It was just like a shift kind of happened, or like I don't know. I feel like it probably changed me as a person after it happened. Where like there was one time where I felt like it was my grandfather, and he was like showing me around Guyana, and I was kind of like with him as a child. And like the experience of like he was like walking to school and he was late for school, and then when he got to school and he was late, he got in a whole lot of trouble. But it was like I was so crazy. It was like I could feel like the sun and everything of walking to school, and I don't even know if it was like exactly what happened to him, and I don't know.
Right.
But like it was a shifting feeling, and it was like I got to get to know him even because he died when I was 2, and there's only very few memories I have of him, mostly of like sitting and watching Popeye.
Oh, cool.
So like to have that experience of like perhaps walking to school in Guyana, which I also have never visited, was like it was a nice feeling. And then there was also one with my grandmother where it was like it was kind of her like encouraging me to continue doing what I wanted to do. And like I've kind of always had this I've always kind of felt bad because I had this experience when I was little. She passed when I was like 14. And so like when I was younger, I told her like I was going to write her stories down for her, and she was so excited. But then just being like a young kid, I never did it. And like, I've always felt bad about it. And like in the dream, she was like, kind of like, it was okay. And like, you will still have those stories. So,
wow, that's so beautiful.
So who knows if it was just my mind doing it, if it was ancestors.
But either way, it was like something within you and a shift happened. And that's kind of what matters. Is like, what's the effect? You know, even if we don't know where it comes from, what's the effect? And is that an effect you want in your life or not? And it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah. So that was, I definitely always welcome those experiences. I really enjoy them. And they're like I said, there's something that just shifts the way I feel for like the rest of my life, I think, each time that they happen. And then also, since moving up here, I've also had like had experience with like, I guess maybe even land or plant ancestry.
Okay, because I was just going to ask you about that.
So I often have dreams about the land that I'm in currently, where it seems like it's telling me stories about what's happened to it, and what's gone on. Like it told me once I've had a story about like I didn't even know what was going on. It was like a bunch of people just like it was like a horde of people just came onto the land and then like we're climbing trees and then start chopping the trees and stuff. And like I just remember like feeling gutted by it and like what's going on? And it was like kind of like a apocalyptic feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then I later on found out that like at some point like I don't know, conservationists came to like kind of chop a lot of the trees in the area that were kind of sick. So sometimes I wonder if it was like the land telling me the story, whether it was like the conservation doing something to help the land, but maybe they did like
The
land
effect.
didn't know what was going on, and just to all of a sudden have all these trees chopped down on it, like it was a traumatic thing for it that it continued to tell me once living here. I don't know.
Right. Wow. And in that, have you, since moving to the land, you've been there a few years now, have you engaged in ritual or ceremony to connect with the spirits of that land? I mean, that dream came through, but do you, like in that instance, did you ask like, wow, is there anything you need or anything I could do? Like, have you developed that relationship like that?
I feel like I need to work on it more. There is more.
I'm not saying you don't need to or don't need to,
No.
if you, yeah, I'm just wondering.
I guess for me, a lot of times, but maybe I need to do a more conscious, like even in me thinking for myself, I need to do a more conscious effort. But for the most part, in my rituals, for me, for ritual has been like in just tending the land.
Yeah.
And so like when I do tend the land, I always prepare the land, or not prepare, but I like tell the land what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I let the land know like my intentions, what's going on. So I guess it's not so much that, I guess sometimes for me it's hard to do like big overt things or big rituals,
Mm-hmm.
but like I make a conscious effort in every step I take to like to be aware of things. So that, I guess that's how I do it. That's my ritual. My ritual is like, I guess I ask consent.
Right. You're being in relationship, really.
Yeah.
And that's probably why that dream could even come to you, because you were like willing to connect, and even because you were willing to even acknowledge that the land is alive.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah. And that's kind of what I was wondering, whether, how is your relationship with the land evolved in those ways? Like, just, yeah, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. The land, it's been so it's just been amazing. It's like whatever you ask, like you say with the spirit as well, like whatever you ask for it, if you ask from it, it like always provides in a way, which is really, it's just amazing to see, especially coming from a city and like living in concrete most of my life and stuff, to like just see how the land works and how much it provides. And then, yes, I mean, I think like the closest thing I can come to spirituality or understanding God or understanding spirit, usually it's just in the earth, I think. Like I can't really go beyond that. But like with the earth, I'm like, all right, earth, I see you, I feel you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's probably my ritual. I had an altar, but it's kind of so I don't know. I think a lot of times also, especially after coming from a rigid religion, learning and listening to yourself about what works the best for you perhaps is the best way to go about it. And so I try my best just to listen to like what works. If like something is just not working, if I keep on trying I keep on trying with altars and
then it's not for you. Exactly.
There's me, right?
And that's the way of it, is like, there's no one way it has to look or be. There's all these different tools and modalities that you can try and see if they work for you. And maybe they work for a few weeks or years and then they don't. It's like, there's no rule.
Yeah. Definitely. Like I like how it could work for like a while, but then maybe it's time for something else and change. And having that room to grow. That's what I enjoy most about in my spirituality. I want to have room to grow. I want room to change. I want room to learn new and different things.
Cool. That's beautiful. Well, let's tell everyone what you offer and where they can find you. And yeah.
Okay, my name is Elan, and my soap business is Fern Valley Botanics. And there you can find artisan soap that I handcraft myself with all plant-based oils and botanical powders and essential oils and all those goodies on Etsy.com shop/Fern Valley Botanics. And you can also find me on Instagram.
Cool. And that's at Fern Valley Botanics too, right?
Yes.
Awesome. And those are all linked in the show notes, y'all. And go drool over the soaps. Try to get one if you can. I know they sell out. So yeah, that's awesome. You need to raise the prices so that, get paid for your labor.
That's one of the most difficult things with a business, like knowing price.
And to getting paid for your labor and for the materials and everything. And yeah, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Wow. Well, I am so thrilled that you said yes to come talk with us today, and just thank you for your time and for just being you and sharing with us today. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Totally.
All the roads are windy.
Listen to over 200 free EarthSpeak podcast episodes on your favorite podcast app, and visit earthspeak.love to learn about our collective community and workshops.